so much for coming out and supporting local independent journalism. The tickets that you buy, if you're in this room and you're a member, thank you so much. An important component of local independent journalism going forward, not just for us, but for a lot of papers in the country right now, is membership. For $20 a month, you could forego a pizza for that price, right? You could be one of our many supporters that we have with us right now. The advertisers, we cannot thank you enough. If you're not already advertising with us, please give us some consideration and make things like this possible. The sponsors, we cannot thank you enough. The advertisers, we cannot thank you enough. But membership, talking to your community, listening to your community, and joining together to push what we have been doing for many, many years forward is the goal. So give us some consideration. You can turn to the inside of the Indy. There's a barcode on the inside front cover. That's where you could go and sign up to become a member. You could make a donation. You could get a subscription come into your mailbox. Included with your membership is a print subscription if you would want that. Some people, my husband's one, he says, "Why are we getting the paper? I read it online." I live in Monument. We're testing the Postal Service, okay? So we'll get started. And again, thank you so much. This is what community looks like, and we are so, so proud to be able to bring everybody together this afternoon. Thank you. Over to Helen.
Great. Thanks, Tracy. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us for COS CEO. We're lucky to have this chance to get together every month and learn from our city's amazing CEOs, business owners, and leaders. We want to thank you for supporting the business community, the Business Journal, and the Indy. We're so grateful for the support of our sponsors making these events possible. We love our ongoing partnership with Phil Long Dealerships. They're back for their third year as top sponsor of COS CEO. Phil Long has a deep history in our city and an even deeper commitment to its growth and development. Joining us this year, gold sponsor Firma IT Solutions. Owner Rodney Gillette Jr. was our April COS CEO, and he's one of our former Rising Stars, one of our DEI award winners, and he's putting his heart and soul into improving Colorado Springs. El Pomar Foundation is a special sponsor, and they've supported our COS CEO program in the past. This year, they're bringing their emerging leaders to the series to meet and learn from our inspiring leaders. Our other sponsors are Notes Live, our local and national business supporting the arts and live music, as well as perennial sponsor Stockman, Cast, Ryan and Company, providing the best accountants for business needs. So let's hear it for our brilliant sponsors. Now, please welcome Gina Sacripanti, Chief Communications Officer with Phil Long Dealerships, to introduce Brother Luck and to tell us about Phil Long, which is celebrating 78 years in Colorado and decades of philanthropic work for our community.
Thank you. Thank you, Helen. Oh, okay. And thank you all for being here tonight. First, I want to give a thanks to CSBJ for putting on this series, really special series and featured speakers, and to Amal Gray for hosting us, and to our fellow sponsors. As Helen said, we are really proud to be the presenting sponsor of this series, now for 3 years. Obviously, we believe in it to be here for 3 years, and to be really a go-to for Colorado for all their vehicle needs now for 78 years. And some may say that, Phil Long is a legacy brand and we can stand on our own, but that's not the case. Every day we work a little bit harder to do a little bit more and to be better for our employees, customers, and community. And I'd like to recognize Kevin Shaughnessy. Kevin's in the back. Kevin is our Executive Vice President and partner to the entire Phil Long Automotive Group. And it's under his leadership that philosophy of excellence and care is really brought to all employees. And so I like to share it because I always learn something, and I like to share something that Kevin talks about all the time, and that is the aggregation of marginal gains. And that means every little bit that we do better can contribute to a whole lot better, right? Every little thing that we do and every interaction we do, we can make this world better. And so when we think about why do we sponsor this series, why do we come back, it's because this series brings our community together and strengthens us in Colorado Springs. So I want to say thank you for those of you who are customers of Phil Long dealerships. It is because of you that we are able to impact our local communities. And for those of you who are not, we ask you to experience Phil Long and come back. You know, there is Happy Father's Day around the corner. So if you're looking for something for your husband or father, you know where to find us. So I had the great pleasure of meeting our featured speaker tonight, Brother Luck. Brother so graciously donated his time and talents to a nonprofit I serve on during COVID to raise funds for children of parents that are caught in the El Paso County court system. And he did that because of his generosity and his desire to be part of this community. Now, we hardly need to tell you that Brother Luck is renowned in the culinary world all over this country and many others. He first came to fame for his standard restaurants and his popularity on celebrity chef shows. Think Bravo's Top Chef and the Food Network's Chopped. And he was the winner on Beat Bobby Flay. But Brother is increasingly known for his work in public speaking, for supporting communities, and as a passionate advocate for mental health awareness. He's got a James Beard nomination under his belt. The James Beard Awards recognizes exceptional talent and achievement in the culinary arts, along with demonstrated commitment to racial and gender equity, community, and sustainability. He's also a highly successful author, sharing his story in his memoir, No Luck's Given, Life is Hard, but There is Hope. Alongside a new chapter that's seen him replace Lucky Dumpling with the highly anticipated folklore in the studio, Brother says his goal for 2023 is to reach more people by discussing mental health and how to build a business, and by sharing stories of hope and inspiration. Tonight, he's talking with Helen Lewis, managing editor of the Business Journal and the Indy, about leadership, lessons learned in a surreal 10 years. Please join me in welcoming Brother Luck.
Wow, I feel super special.
That happens when you are. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
So let's jump in and start with your childhood. Tell us about where you grew up, about your family, and about what your life was like there.
Yeah. So my story is it begins with happiness and joy and family and love, and all of that was taken away quick. I was raised in San Francisco, California, all over the Bay Area, Oakland, Vallejo, and my father passed away when I was 10 years old. One day, he was gone. He was quick. He was fine, then he wasn't. My mother was left to raise these two young boys on her own, and she did the best she could. And it's taken me a long time to learn that lesson and say that out loud, because as a young adolescent, we're angry, we're selfish, it's about me. And I couldn't see that growing up, the same fears and struggles and environment that I was living in and living with, she had. Plus, she was a widow. Plus, she had to figure out how to do it without any support. So, my story comes from hardship. But along the way, I found great mentors. I found great people to inspire me, to help me see the greatness in myself. And that launched a career into culinary.
Can you tell us about some of those early mentors? Who was the first person that you really remember taking you under their wing and guiding you in a new way?
We always talk about our great mentors. But I had a lot of bad mentors.
Tell us about those first.
Those were my first mentors. I grew up in a very urban environment, And the people I idolized at that age and at that time were the people that I was around in the streets, which were the hustlers, the pimps, the drug dealers. These are the people that had the money, power, and respect. These are the people that I thought had everything. And they gave lessons. They gave you knowledge. They gave you awareness. They protected you in a way. And I didn't realize a lot of those lessons weren't good lessons, but I walked away with such a sound mind of how to pay attention and be aware of my surroundings and how to adapt and evolve and how to survive. I think that's just such a key piece of those early mentors. It wasn't until I got into cooking, I had a friend of the family, we always call him our big cousin, who relocated us, my brother and I, to Arizona. I was 15, and I didn't know what to expect with Arizona. Coming from the inner city to cactuses and 120-degree weather, I had no idea what to expect, and it was surreal to experience that heat. Mm-hmm. It was so hot. I didn't want to go outside, which means I didn't ditch school. So I went to school because there was an air conditioner. That was it. It was that simple. The beauty is when I got into the Phoenix school system, they said I qualified for a vocational program. They wanted to put me into a school to learn a trade. And when I started going through the list with a counselor, I saw culinary. And I had recalled from years prior being in a home ec class and a teacher saying, you should be a chef, you should go to culinary school. So I asked the counselor, I said, is this like cooking? Is it like home ec? And they go, yeah, I think so. And my whole philosophy at that time was, I'm gonna get free lunch. I'm probably gonna get to talk to some girls. And I'm in. And I found such great leadership and positive male role models at a time in my life when I needed it most. They helped me believe that I was good at cooking, which made me want to become a great cook. And that was the moment that my pathway started to transition into something that was unexpected. And it would take me on this journey around the world and sitting here in front of you today.
So it was a long path to Colorado Springs. Tell us a bit about that. Tell us about how you went from Arizona all the way to here, what you did along the way.
My background prior to independent restaurants was in corporations. So I was in hotels, I was in resorts, I was in hospitality. That was my focus. My goals were to become a general manager. And it isn't because I idolized the general manager, I idolized what they had. I'll never forget working in Lake Tahoe, and the general manager walked into the kitchen, it was like on my first day, and he handed me a list. And he walked off after saying, have room service send it over to my villa. And I looked at this list, and it read 2 8-ounce filet mignons, 2 lobster tails, a pound of asparagus, 2 bottles of Cabernet wine, a dozen chocolate-covered strawberries. And I walked over to the room service manager and I said, what is this? And they go, that's his grocery list. I want that job. And that's when I found out he had a villa on property. He had a company Hummer. He got to eat in the hotel, which was a beautiful resort on the North Shore for free. It was all his expense account. Plus he made, bank. And I'm sure he had some type of, dividends that were distributed from that company at the time because it was private. And I had every desire to become a general manager for a number of years. Coming up in food and beverage, you have to learn the entire property. That's the first focus. And working for a company like Hyatt at the time, they rotate you. So I learned everything. I worked in Einstein Bagels. I worked in cafeteria. I worked in a 3-meal restaurant that did breakfast, lunch, dinner. I worked in fine dining. I worked in banquets. I worked in garde-manger, preparing all the cold items for the entire hotel, the cheese boards, the charcuteries, the lunch boxes, the fruit trays. I did everything I could, and then I started to transition to the front of the house, running kegs down to the bar and filling ice wells and setting up brunches and setting up tables and chairs for conferences. I was everywhere, and as soon as I got bored, I transferred. I went to another Hyatt. So I rotated through Hyatt hotels one after the other to gain as much experience as I could. I wanted to know what it was like to work in a resort. I wanted to know what it was like to be in a boutique hotel. I needed to experience a large volume production property like a downtown convention hotel. And at some point, I was ready for an executive chef role, and they told me I wasn't. And that just bothered me. So I ended up coming here to Colorado Springs and taking a role as the executive sous chef of Shining Mountain Resort at the time. The whole reason we came here to Colorado Springs was because my wife and I were looking for quality of life. I was working nonstop, and I think as young professionals, we sometimes forget we have to build ourselves up before we can take care of somebody else. You have to know who you are before you can give yourself to someone else. And, I've been married since I was 19. So I had to really understand that my career couldn't always be first. And it was a moment in my life where I had to start choosing quality of life. And that was the pivot.
So when you started your first business, what were the values that you founded it on, and have those evolved over time?
So when I started my first business, which was Street Eats, in 2013, it replicated no type of business plan that I'd ever written. It was not how I envisioned opening my first restaurant. It was in the back of a punk rock bar downtown, mosh pits, mohawks, holes in the wall. I would repair chairs in the morning and drywall in the afternoon. It was crazy, but it stemmed from an owner who I worked for in Manitou Springs at a restaurant who said, "Brother, you have great ideas, but it's my money. And we're going to do what I want to do because I'm the one spending the money." And I said, "You're absolutely right. It's your money." I leapt. I jumped off a cliff. I walked up to the edge. I stared down at this abyss, these clouds, no sense of a bottom. And I went for it. And I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew was I wasn't scared of the work. My whole career up until that point was 16, 18 hours a day. I wasn't scared to put in the hours. What I was scared of was failing. And it was my wife who told me, if fear is the only thing stopping you, then that's not a good enough reason. But you can't do it all. You can't focus on just the restaurant and consulting and all these things. You got to focus on one and build it. Build a strong foundation. So if it does break, at least it's got something to stand on. And that's how we started the first business.
Let's talk about bringing people up along behind you, training people, mentoring people. Talk about second chances. Can you tell us when you've had a really important second chance, and how do you give those to others?
I think every day is a second chance. We have the ability to write this new story every morning. So what is our pen saying? What do we want? What do we want the story to read as? So I love second chances because I think most of the time people are writing the end of the chapter before they've read the actual story. We're assuming we know how it's going to play out. We're assuming we know what happened. We don't even give it that chance. So I'm very curious, and I come from a place of curiosity when I have my discussions. What happened? Why did it happen? How are you feeling about that? Why did you make that decision? Where did that come from? I get a lot more when I ask questions, and it usually leads me into a path of understanding that there was a breakdown in the communication at some point, probably on our end. So I usually take responsibility, and I give probably more second chances than I should. But I think that's what we need more of in this world. We need better communication. We need walls knocked down. We need to build trust. We need to be vulnerable. These things are so important when we're talking to people. And I think we have a disconnect. So I see it every day. Most of the people who work for me come from some type of organization or some type of nonprofit that I've supported, and I've just gotten to have a conversation. Because I hire mindset and I train skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I don't care about your resume. I don't care who you work for. Who are you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. I want to know the person because I'm hiring you and your family. I'm going to have to get to know you as an individual, and I'm going to have to get to know your family to know what makes you tick, to know what makes you motivated and want to drive and accomplish things. And then I have to teach my young managers these things to understand that these are the values and the principles that we're building as a business. And it's not just that I believe this. Every corporation started as an individual or entity at some point. They had to build and grow and work through lessons. I mean, to be at that many years, that's so impressive. But that's lessons. That's a lot of second chances and third chances. But I had somebody tell me, you can make the mistake once and learn from it. If you make that same mistake twice, it's going to be expensive. So just be cautious of learning those lessons and not making that mistake again. It's one of the key pieces, I think, to survival as a business owner.
I think we've all seen or heard about toxic restaurant culture. Mm-hmm. How did that become so ingrained, and how's it changing now, and what still needs to change?
The hospitality and restaurant industry are a collection of personalities and cultures from around the world. It doesn't matter your background. It doesn't matter who your parents were. It doesn't matter how much money you come from or don't have. It doesn't matter your education level. It's your work ethic. How do you show up? How do you carry yourself? What has happened in that industry, because it has been built so much on the intensity and the pride of servitude, we've forgotten that we're dealing with people. And as someone who has come up in this industry, I've experienced that. I've had things thrown at me. I've had chefs cuss me out. I've had the really harsh lessons that happen in kitchens, and still some today. I personally started a business because I don't want to be one of those people, and I don't want to work for those people. And I've fired more people in my own business for acting like that because we can't tolerate it. We have to change. But if you want to see change, you have to initiate that change. You've got to be the spark to that flame. And I think about that match every day. I want to be that spark. So I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to say the things that are uncomfortable, and I'm going to change the narrative and have a conversation with you as a person versus just my employee. Coming from corporate, especially, you don't talk about any of those things. We don't talk about race. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about emotion. We have to protect ourselves. Everything's a liability, and I get that. But people are people, and this is why there's a disconnect. It's a constant disconnect because we can't look at them as our employees. We work for them as owners. We have to. We have to lead from the front. Every one of my staff knows I have no problem scrubbing a floor drain. I have no problem working in the kitchen. I have no problem getting on the floor and bussing tables. I'm sure some of you have seen me do that in my restaurants. It's because I care, and I will show my staff that every single day. I don't care what the accolades are. I'm not too good to work. And I don't come from that privilege which means I have an extra chip on my shoulder that I will wear in my work ethic.
You've become known as a mental health advocate and for working to normalize open discussions about mental health. How did that happen?
I broke mentally. And I think there's something powerful to say that as a leader, as someone that people view as successful or having it all together. For me, in 2018, I was filming my second season of Top Chef. And I was chasing validation. I was chasing the approval of other people. I needed to feel like I was accepted. I needed to feel like I was good enough. I thought these organizations that I respected and admired were going to do that for me. The reality was I needed a mirror, because only I can be the one to do that for myself. But I didn't know this. So years and years of tucking away pain and anger and frustration and fear and insecurity and anxiety, putting all these things into a closet and locking the door as fast as I can every time, eventually those hinges come off. And all it takes is the right medium, the right environment. And for me, it was Top Chef. Being put into a competitive series, going against the will of everybody that loved me, that said, don't do it again. You don't have to prove anything. Being kicked off after working so hard. I mean, it triggered all of these things that I had inside, the neglect and the anger and the pain and the isolation, the walls that I had built, it crumbled them. And when they put me into a hotel room for my sequester to kind of calm down and, we'll come back and get you in a few days to do your pickup lines and do your interviews, that was the worst thing that could have happened to me, because I was alone with myself. And I listened and believed the lies that I told myself. To sit in that room and constantly hear, you're not good enough. You don't deserve to win. You don't deserve to be here. You should just end it all. That moment that I decided to take my own life in that room is full of shame. But I survived. And when I woke up that next morning and I saw myself in the mirror, I broke down and I asked for help. I told production, I need to leave. I can't be here. If you've watched that season, you see me exit suddenly, and they don't really go into detail why. This is why. I need to take care of me right now. And I still didn't know how. I didn't have the tools. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have a true awareness at that point. It would take many, many, many sessions of therapy. It would take many discussions that were uncomfortable. It would take a lot of internal self-reflection. But as I got into that process, I realized there's a lot of people that feel this way. I'm not alone. But the only way to help someone who's going through those struggles is to share your own story. We have to share our uncomfortable, our pain with someone else, because it's meant for them to hear. They need to hear this so they can feel encouraged to say, you know what? Me too. That's power. Which is why, as I began to transition into talking and writing, I'm reaching a lot more people than I can in a kitchen. And I'm excited about that. So the pandemic was the greatest pause button. It gave me time. It gave me time to write. It gave me time to put the book together. It gave me time to focus on my message. It gave me time to prioritize what I want in my life, which is faith, family, and food. In that order. And I mess that up every day. Every day I mess that up. But I want to focus on speaking on these subjects because people need to hear this. A lot of us are broken right now.
You have a great perspective on the fear that's often woven into leadership and running a business. Talk to us about that.
I'm scared every day. Every day I am scared as a business owner. I am scared as a leader that I'm going to do the wrong thing, going to say the wrong thing. I'm not going to have the dollars in the bank that need to cover the expenses. I'm scared of everything. But that fear, again, is not worth stopping over. Fear will always exist. We have to learn how to harness it. We have to learn how to manage the things that are around it. It's always going to be there. So how do you start to kind of control the areas that you can and not worry about the things that you can't control? I have to teach my leaders this because they think they have to have every answer. They have to have every bit of experience or they're going to look weak or they're not going to be able to lead the team as they should. It's okay not to know the answer, but go find it out. Use your resources. What mentors are you talking to on a regular basis to give you advice and direction? What tools do you have at your disposal? Your job is to use the greatness around you and be able to solve with those tools. We all have a computer in our pocket. The answers are there. Don't be afraid to look for them.
How did the needs that you had as a teenager and as a younger chef influence the way you lead your own people now?
I'm very observant. And I'm one of those people who I've created an alter ego throughout my career who is the exact opposite of who I feel like I am as a person. I'm a very quiet person. I'm actually kind of antisocial. And Chef Brother Luck is not. I feel like I was unintentionally creating this outgoing, spoken, confident person that was every one of my insecurities. And it wasn't until my wife said, "Who am I talking to, chef or brother?" That hit me, that hit me. I didn't like that. I don't want to be two people. So I had to find a way over the last couple years as a business owner to begin to bridge those two people. I can be both. These are characteristics that I've now embraced. I'm no longer running from. I'm no longer scared of. But I'm also no longer shameful of. These things are okay because we're people.
Talk to us about the whole process of deciding to replace Lucky Dumpling with Folklore, and about the decision to take on a partner for the first time.
Yeah. Business is about evolving. We have to evolve. And when I look at business, I break it down into three columns. It's the dollars, it's the people, and it's the product. Those three columns will make a great leader, will make a great business if you're good at all three. Most of the time when you work for someone, they're good at one, maybe two. They're amazing with money, they're horrible with people, but they can put out a decent product. I've always tried to focus on all three. So it's constant evaluation. It's constantly reviewing the facts, the finances. Where are we at? How's it doing? I've had to grow my business over 10 years now. I've been on my own. And it's gone from the back of a punk rock bar to a small house on West Colorado to a flagship restaurant in downtown to going back to the punk rock bar and opening a dumpling concept. The cool part about Lucky was personal for me. It was a reflection of my story, my grandmother, what I love, hip hop, dumplings, kung fu. I love these things. If you were ever in Lucky, it was inspired by The Last Dragon. If you've ever seen that movie, heavy of that inspiration is in that shop. But Lucky started as 30 seats. That was it. It was 30 seats. And we were pinching dumplings around the clock for 30 seats. And within a year and a half, the pandemic happened. And it became about survival. Restaurants were shut down, outdoor business only, COVID protocols, constantly changing. We had to survive. We had to fight. While that happened, it's surreal to say this out loud now, I expanded 3 times in that space. I took over the Triple Nickel bar when they closed. As soon as I had the bar, I zoned the front space for patio, permanent patio, not temporary. So we built this 90-foot long patio, and then Studio A64 closed. So we took over the studio above that space. 3 expansions during the pandemic. I had no idea what I was doing. I just kept doing it. The problem was when I got to the end of that lease, I looked at the concept, and it came down to a quantity versus quality conversation. We can't do this many numbers and maintain quality. And this concept isn't built to be dumbed down. So what are we going to do? So the goal, which is exciting because we're finally into this launch, was I'm going to move Lucky Dumpling upstairs. I've got a private studio that seats 20 people. I've got a kitchen up there. I've got a bar up there. That's going to be our pop-up concept. That's going to be dumplings and ramen. And we just launched that last week, finally. We were supposed to launch it 3 months ago. I broke my foot. Adapt and evolve. So to open it last week was super surreal because it brought back Lucky Dumpling, and you can see the smiles on the staff who were part of that family upstairs. We've just migrated them. Downstairs, the question then began, what are we going to do here? Because it's a unique space. It's actually 3 different locations. It's got to be something social. And as we're watching downtown Colorado Springs transition, we see a lot of residential. My wife's in that industry. We know it's coming. So seeing the Gray Star property, seeing the Eco 333s, there's so much residential coming into that market on Colorado and Wasatch. We need a social concept. So as we started having the discussion about social concepts, bar kept coming up because in a restaurant, bar is profitable, right? There's not a lot of cost involved in making drinks, but there's also no shelf life. It stays good. Food dies. So we wanted a heavier bar concept. Well, bar's not my specialty. I'm good at food and I can make a great drink, but let's branch out. Let's have a conversation. Let's build community. And this is where a conversation started with Sean and Inez, who owned the Wobbly Olive and Illusion Speakeasies, was I would love to talk to you guys about doing cocktails. And it quickly escalated into, you know what? Let's go all in. I've already built it. You're willing to bring something to the table. Let's do this together. And I think that's a rarity in the city to have restaurants actually put egos aside and work together and make something better and greater. And there's been so many lessons in that. I've never had a partner. 10 years, I've made every decision I want. I don't have to ask permission. You know, Tina and I were driving down to the restaurant recently, and we're like, how do we comp the ticket? Do we tell them? Do we just comp it all? It's our money, but it's not. I mean, it's a whole new relationship, a whole new dynamic. But I'm also in a position where I'm trying to push my brand further and build more licensing deals, build more brand deals where I can expand into new markets. And that's going to require more partnerships. So this is a great way to actually work through my own thing before I go into a major corporation deal. So I like the idea of this. It's exciting to now come back from my injury and have fresh eyes after they've opened, because I see the bar completely different. I'm walking in and I see, amazing vibe and decor. I see great food. I see great drinks. I see good service. I just want to tweak it. I want to evolve it a little bit. I want to adapt it a little bit. I want to put a little bit more of my personality on it, a little bit more of my flair on it. And now we're going to work through that. We're going to start to say, you know what? Piano bar on one night. I want a DJ on Friday, Saturday nights. This thing should be bumping. I'm too urban to not have this thing bumping, and y'all are attached to my brand as well. So it's exciting to now kind of come into the mix and say, we're going to do this and we're going to do this, but do it in a collaborative way, because we make each other better. That's our job, is to not only manage down, manage across, and manage up. We've got to have these relationships all the way through.
What have you had to really work at as a leader? What doesn't come naturally to you?
If there's anything that I have to work on as a leader, is my communication. I am one of those leaders that thinks that I've said it because my brain's moving so fast, and I'm assuming that you heard it, and now I'm wondering why it's not done. And I have to slow myself down and change my forms of communication. So the greatest lesson that I've learned throughout my leadership style, as I've taken on more and more employees, has been measurable expectations. If I tell a cook, go clean the walk-in, and I come back in an hour and I don't think that walk-in's cleaned, and I go up to that cook and I say, why didn't you clean this walk-in? He goes, well, chef, I did. Well, how come this wasn't changed? The labels weren't redone. The carts weren't pulled out. You didn't even bust out the pressure washer. Well, chef, you didn't say that. Measurable expectations are one of the most important things we have to do as leaders. We have to say things that are very specific with a timeline and a follow-up. Hey, I would like for you to clean that walk-in. I want to make sure everything gets pulled out. I want to make sure you pressure wash it. I want all the things wrapped. I want no cardboard in here. I'll be back in 2 hours to check it. And in 2 hours, I have to show up. So my measurable expectations, whether written or verbal, usually both, are most important for me. And going through my injury over the last 3 months, where I physically can't be in the production, I've been forced to change my leadership style, which is crazy, because now it is teleconferences. Now it is emails. Now it is conversations. I have to trust. I have to delegate. And the only way I can do that is to set measurable expectations. So my communication style, I think, would probably be the one thing that I'm constantly aware of and I'm constantly working on. Also, my resting chef face. I have it, and I have it bad. I'm actually in a really good mood most of the time. But I'm a big guy, and I have a blank, mean mug. And I have to be aware of that when it comes to people, especially in the restaurants. I sit down when I talk to one of my female staff members, just to make sure they feel comfortable, that I'm not towering over them. I make sure to change my body language to open when I'm having a conversation. I have to be aware of my perception, because the perception's reality, regardless of the intention. And I think that's so important as well. So I'm not allowed to have resting chef face.
You've traveled the world. What's one place that you can really look at and say that changed the way I saw things?
Japan changed me. I had the opportunity to study in Japan in 2016 to go on an exchange program as a chef. I went with 3 other chefs from New York, all from very high-end restaurants. I was the only one from Colorado Springs. They were all from Manhattan. We flew to Tokyo. We then went to Kanazawa in the Ishikawa prefecture. And we were immersed in Japanese culture in the slow countryside initially. And I thought, after all of these years of being in the hospitality industry, I knew how to serve, until I went to Japan. It's a lifestyle. I've never been treated with such grace and care and thought repeatedly. I mean, someone honked at me and bowed at the same time. And I didn't know what to... I felt like I could drop my American edge when I was in Japan. And that's the first place I've really been where I felt that comfortable. But I got to experience food on a completely different level. It's actually what inspired 4. While in Japan, everything was local. Everything. It didn't matter which part of Japan it was from. There was a story. These scallops are from Hokkaido. And here's the story behind why they're the best scallops in the world. And I was so inspired by that, I questioned, where do I live? What's so special about Colorado? What's so special about Colorado Springs? And I was in the middle at that time of defining my brand, Brother Luck. Who is Brother Luck? And I was sitting with a local marketing company, and they were writing out all these things about Brother Luck, and they were sending it to me by email while I was in Japan. And I remember sitting on a beach and reading this email, and I kept seeing the word 4. And so I pulled up the map and I looked at this area and I said, what's really unique is we're in the four corners. It's the only part of the country where those 4 states touch. That's unique. That's different. Well, what is the four corners? Like, who are the people? What is the story? And I started to track backwards. The pioneer, the European, working their way across, settling. The Native American cultures that were here, the Spanish that worked their way up and spread religion and trade. All of these things shaped this region of the country. And there's a very defined style here in the Southwest, but it's split by elevation. You have the desert and you have the mountains. So when I looked at the four corners, I kind of saw that New Mexico, Arizona desert and these high mountain regions. And I was like, that's cool. And as I started to kind of dig deeper and read more, I read a quote by a tribesman from the Ute tribe who said, pre-contact, we were experts at hunting, fishing, farming, and gathering, which made us excellent cooks. I said, that's the restaurant. We're calling it 4. It's based on the 4 corners. It's based on those 4 people. We live in 4 seasons. I want to do a 4-course tasting experience. And then to top it off, I'm Brother Luck the 4th. So it was super personal to me to write 4, but I knew after Street Eats, I needed something with a storyline. I couldn't market myself nationally to a James Beard or a Food and Wine magazine if I didn't have a strong story and intention behind my restaurant. So 4 had a lot of thought before we launched it. And then, of course, the day we opened, I left to go film Top Chef for 2 months. So I wasn't here for the opening after all that work.
When you look at the impact you've had on Colorado Springs, what are you most proud of?
10 years ago, people told me I couldn't do the food I wanted to do here. This was a meat and potato town. This was a corporate chain restaurant town. It wouldn't fly. I couldn't serve pig ears. I couldn't serve beef cheeks. I couldn't do things from scratch all crazy. And we've had amazing chefs here for a long time. I mean, was it Cloud 9? Cloud 9 or Club 9, I think, was the original group of chefs that are, a lot of them are still here. People like Jay Gust and James Africano. All these chefs kind of paved the way, but I think the city wasn't quite ready for what they were trying to bring at that time. When someone kind of told me that I couldn't do that, I took it as a challenge that I'm going to elevate the food and I'm going to test the waters. And it started with pop-up dinners, and those sold out, and then it turned into restaurant concepts. But it wasn't until Guy Fieri reached out to us at Street Eats, and they said, hey, we want to feature you on Triple D, Diners, Dives, and Drives. And the server called me up to the front and was like, chef, there's somebody on the phone. They want to talk to you about Guy Fieri. And I heard that request, and I said, absolutely not, and I hung up. I wasn't interested. I had an ego. I was like, no, we are chefs. We wear white coats. We don't do that kind of shit. This was like young adolescence at its finest. When I watched Guy Fieri come to town a couple months later and, showcase all of these amazing restaurants and restaurant owners, my restaurants were dead. They were flocking and chasing this man from place to place, and they were tagging me and everything. Why don't you have Brother Lux? Why don't you have Brother Lux? Guy Fieri, you slacking. That's our guy. I didn't even have the heart to tell people at the time. I said no. I was embarrassed, but I realized the power of a brand ambassador, somebody who is representing a culture or a city. And I made that choice that I wanted to be the culinary brand ambassador for Colorado Springs. And I was going to get on these shows to have our city attached to it. Every time my name popped up and my restaurant popped up, it popped up with a location. And there was this chip on my shoulder because Denver and Aspen and Boulder always got the love. And Colorado Springs kind of got shunned. We didn't get the invites. We didn't get to go to the Aspen and Food and Wines and all these cool events. I knew if I got recognized nationally and we got on the map nationally, they would have to. Which is funny because I'm leaving for Aspen Food and Wine tomorrow. So it's super cool to look back on all these years of what we've done to change the narrative of what food is. And there's still so much work to do. It's not done. But what I'm most proud of, to answer your question, is the young chefs that came along with me during those times who are now business owners, who are now running their own departments, running their own shops, that still call me up just to check in. And I call them. I will call former employees that have nothing to do with my business to check in. How you doing? Chef, I can't believe you're calling me right now. I just want to make sure you're good. You need anything? You need advice? You need direction? You need some support? I want to check in on all of those people because that's the investment. That's what I'm measuring my success on, is the people that I've bred out of my kitchens. That's what changes our community. That's what grows our community. That's what takes us to the next level. So if there's anything I'm most proud of, it's the people that are now in charge and who will eventually knock me off my pedestal, which, please take it. I don't want the spotlight. I want to go hide it in the mountains and, it's all yours.
So that leads to what's next?
For me, it's this. I love being able to share, and I love being transparent. I think authenticity is everything. I'm realer than $100 bill with a line across. That is 100% how I feel. And I think having the opportunity now to have a book that allows me to speak on leadership and mentorship and perseverance and mental health, to talk to businesses around the country and get on stage and share these stories. I've found this new platform that I enjoy. And I think I've kind of been groomed to be on stage because I've been doing it at tables for years. I've been doing it in hotels and resorts for clients, and I enjoy the servitude of it. But I like the impact. It's the messages that I get that someone says, thank you for sharing. You saved my life. I didn't take my life. Thank you for sharing about your father. My son and I had a discussion today. Thank you for what you said about your mother. I called mine today. Those are powerful. That's my why right now. It has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with accolades. It's people. I want to leave this earth whenever my time is called, knowing that I made an impact on others, and that legacy will live on through their actions.
Thank you so much for spending this evening with us. And thank you everyone for joining us. Again, we'd like to thank our sponsors, our platinum sponsor, Philong Dealerships, our gold sponsor, Firma IT Solutions, our gold sponsor, El Pomar Foundation, silver sponsor, Stockman Cast Ryan and Company, and silver sponsor, Notes Live. And this is the bit where we usually ask Rodney up to come and tell us about his business and say a few words and do a few things.
Appreciate you, brother. Yes, sir.
Can we give Brother Luck a hand, please? Give him a hand. So I wasn't here last month, but I hope it's not too late to set my demons straight. I know I made you wait. How much can you take? I hope you see the God in me. I hope you can see. If it's up, stay down for me. Yeah. Shimmy, shimmy, Cocoa Puff, Serafina, flaming hot. Where I'd be without your love. Rest your wings and trust, I feel you deep. And speaking of deep, this brother right here is deep. This brother right here is deep. So thank you. So my name is Rodney Gillette. I am a certified ethical hacker. Yes, it's a real thing. And this week I found out I was awarded the Hall of Fame for the Certified Chief Information Security Officer with the EC Council. It's a global certifying authority in IT recognized by the Department of Defense. Thank you. I'm really good at what I do, okay? And one of the things, I'm also an Air Force veteran, and speaking of veterans, one of the things I wanted to talk about with Brother Luck that he did not bring up in his conversation is the work that he's done with active duty military that are studying the culinary profession. So I just want to thank you, my brother, for the work you do for our military, because that means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you. Yes, give him a hand. Give him a hand. So as a certified ethical hacker and owner and CEO of Firm IT Solutions, people ask me, Rodney, how do I know if I need to call you? So I wrote some things down so you know what kind of situations you're in if you need to call me. So if you've been hacked, you need to call me, okay? This is your business. I don't do personal, just your companies, okay? If the CEO of your company is managing your IT, you need to call me, okay? If you have tasked the office manager of your company to be the IT support for your entire business, and you know they ain't been trained, you need to call me. If you have an IT provider already, and you are not feeling so good with them anymore, you need to call me. If the IT support that you are paying for disrespects you and chastises you for having computer issues, you need to call me. Oh yeah, that happens. If your business grosses $500,000 or more, and you're making no investment in your IT at all, you need to give me a call. If you have come to the realization that your business might be exposed to being compromised, you need to give me a call. If your computer's crashed right now, while we're here at El Magre, can you get your data back? If you don't have an answer for that question, you need to give me a call. And if you are looking up IT and cybersecurity services on Google, before you choose a company out of state that you don't know, give me a call. And shopping for these services is not like buying toilet paper. We are not looking for the cheapest thing. You're looking for the best thing. So if you're looking for the best, give me a call. Call Firm IT Solutions. Not calling us could cost you nothing. Calling us could cost you nothing. Not calling us could cost you everything. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So I have one more thing to say. So join us next week, June 22nd. That's right? June 22nd for our Best in Business Awards and celebration at the Pinery North. Don't go to the other Pinery, you'll be lonely. And then join us July 12th for our next Leadership Lessons event. Our executive editor, Brian Grossman, will be interviewing Bob McLaughlin of Mount Carmel Veterans Service Centre. Don't miss that one. Go to cspj.com/events for tickets. Thank you everybody for coming and have a great night.